Two bike owners of two iconic bikes competing for the title of Top Dog. Now, when it comes to bikes, we've all got our favourites, but some people are positively passionate about their two-wheel friend, and we've got plenty of them on the show. We've also got a panel of experts who are here and ready to pull apart the arguments of the owners that their bike is the best in its class. More about them in a moment, but first it's time to meet our first owner, who really is adamant that his bike is the dog's.
My name's Phil Woodhams. This bike is a BSA Gold Star, DBD 34. Now, I've actually bought this one, stripped it and rebuilt it. It's taken me about 2.5 years to rebuild, but I've got a bike now that I really like. And it's had a lot of modifications done to it. It's got a full-width front hub with Eddie Dale twin leading shoe front brake, two-way damping front forks on it, engine being completely rebuilt. Right, so that's all up together, running nicely. It's got the Tompkin Nova 5-speed gearbox in it, rather than the RRT2 box. It's got a Suzuki GS 550 clutch conversion on it, so all the points that I've pointed out on here have all been done to make the bike a lot better bike. You can use it out on the open road, you can use it in town, you can use it in traffic. You know, it's got everything you could possibly want in a bike. It's got the power, performance, the road holding, the braking, everything.
And here is Phil Woodhams with his BSA 1955 Gold Star. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
And we'll be speaking to you in a few moments, but let's introduce you now to our panel of experts who are going to decide whether this bike really is the top dog. They're going to pull apart the good parts and the bad parts and just see what this bike is all about. Our panel this week are Steve Wilson, a freelance journalist and expert in post-war British bikes. Evan Cosmo, who restores classic motorcycles and runs his own workshop, Cosmo Classic Motorcycle Limited. And also James Robinson, editor of Classic Motorcycle magazine. Morning, gentlemen, and welcome. Now, first of all, James, this Gold Star, I mean, let's just put it into perspective as to what it represents in the history of British motorcycles.
Right, the Gold Star is basically an icon of its era. In the 1950s, it was the top machine that could be bought, really. All-round sporting ability. This one obviously is in CAF Racer trim, which is kind of a racer for the road. The Gold Star, though, was available as well in trials trim, scrambles trim, and it excelled in all forms of motorcycle sport, basically.
Steve Wilson, what are your thoughts on what is definitely, certainly one of the most famous marks in BSA, but quite an anomaly, really, for a Gold Star, quite different than what BSA had done in the past?
Absolutely. BSA withdrew from road racing as long ago as 1923 after a disastrous season. And yet their bike in the 50s was the top sports machine, road sports machine, very much the icon.
And Cosmo, of course, we know this bike as the Rockers, the Ace Cafe kind of bike, the Ton-Up Boys. It was known because it went over 100 miles an hour, correct?
Definitely. Having owned two myself, superb bike.
Are there any distracts from it? Is there things you don't like about it?
Unfortunately, the price of them now is just heading to massive proportions. You know, you have to be a wealthy chap to buy something like this.
Interestingly, James, that was one of the things that was said when this came out, that the problem with it was that it was a bit expensive.
I mean, it was, but it's like anything exclusive is always expensive, and it was the case at the time, and it still is today. I mean, it was an aspirational thing now, and it still is for a lot of people today.
Steve, what was its competition?
Competition was fundamentally Triumph twins, either in standard form or as the Triton.
Now, Cosmo, you've been sort of saying good things about it, but it has been criticised for being a little bit awkward. It's high-geared, sometimes the gears slipped, and there's a lot of modifications made to the modern versions of this because the originals sometimes were a little bit iffy.
I describe them, they're a pig in traffic, and you know, I love riding them, but it's to go on an open road, open A roads, etc. It's a fast rider's bike, but personally I love them. I do like them, but again, you've got to open the speed up on them. You know, they don't ride slowly.
And I'd say great bike if you can start it. Basically, this is a piston as big as a cocoa cup, high compression engine, relatively high compression, and pig to start can be, especially when it's hot.
All right, thanks, gents. Well, we'll have more from our panel in a moment. And also, Phil will get a chance to talk about the bike that he's mad about. Now, you can add your comments about the BSA Gold Star or any of the other bikes in our series by logging on to our website. That's at menonmotors.co.uk. We'd also like you to tell us what bikes you think should be on the show. Maybe you've got an iconic motor yourself and you think we should see it. Then log on and let us know. But back to the debate now with our panel. Steve, let's get to the history of this. The Gold Star got its name effectively because it went over 100 miles an hour, right?
Over 100 miles an hour around Brooklyn, the pre-war racing circuit. And then after the war, the bike was developed very substantially. And this is the dog of dogs. It is the DBD34, the final development.
Cosmo, great that it's a racer, but on the roads today?
Clutch overheats in traffic. I rode mine to the centre of Brighton last year and I ended up pushing it on a bike run because it just overcooked the clutch.
James, it's been described as one of the most versatile motorcycles ever produced by British industry.
That's it, and it was versatile. It excelled in all fields, all sporting fields, though. That's the thing. It's not a ride to work ride
Not a
through
road
the town.
bike.
I mean, it's not, yeah.
Well, they sold it as a touring. There was a
There was a touring
version, but that
version,
wasn't the
admittedly.
point. Yeah.
But yeah, the point
Certainly
was
not
it
the
was
point.
a speed machine. It's for
Yeah.
different aspects of speed, and that's what
But
it's
the
about.
plus point of it being a race-bred machine was that it was on the road virtually unbreakable.
Well, I'll tell you what, we could talk all day about this, but let's see it in action, because now it's a chance for Phil to get out on the road and show us what the BSA Gold Star can do. Well, I think you have to admit that once you see it in action, it really is a beautiful bike and a real classic. But let's get back to the debate as to whether it really is the dogs or not. Let's start with James. Where do you put this in perspective in terms of you're looking at classics every day? Where do you put this in?
I mean, it's fairly near the top, to be honest. It is an icon, and it's designed to do a job which is to go quickly at the time, and which it still does today.
On the
really.
racetrack, though, not... I mean, as I say, it is a rider's bike, and someone that actually purchases one or owns one, they've got to realise it is a race bike, and you've got to put up with its four boils on the road.
OK, it is a race bike, less than a performance bike in terms of being on the road. But we're talking iconic bikes here. Surely it's not really its performance, what it represents, surely.
Of course, but at a price. At a price, one, in your pocket, and two, in rideability as well. It does spoil it at slow speeds with modern traffic.
But it is what it is. I mean, it's nothing else. It's about performance, and it's only iconic because of its performance. That was the reason it became an icon.
I would dispute
performance.
that in that it was actually the apogee, as a historian, it was the apogee of BSA, the greatest British, arguably the greatest British bike manufacturer. It never got any better than this.
When this was the bee's knees, or when it was the dogs, it was going to the Ace Cafe in London, and it was being shown off. It had nothing to do with practicality, surely.
Not at all.
Oh yes, because they'd then leave the Ace Cafe with a record playing, and a Gold Star would have to get around quicker than a 650 Triumph, which it was capable of doing.
With a good push start or a good slipping of the clutch and smoke, it's getting away. They're getting away on these. These were designed to be bump started at race meetings. Racing used to have to run to the bike and bump start it, not put it in gear and pull away with the clutch.
No start and stop. That's
true.
the thing.
That's why this clutch is, and the gearbox. And the clutch is okay, but it's designed. It's the gearbox. It doesn't cope with the gearbox, the high first gear.
It has to be said there are modern solutions to all these problems, and this bike actually incorporates a couple of them.
I agree.
Guys, I'll stop you there. It's time for the talk to stop for a moment and take a look at the facts now of this wonderful Gold Star BSA. The Gold Star has a single overhead valve engine, 499 cc's, putting out about 38 brake horsepower. Top speed approximately 100 miles per hour, and in terms of cost, between £7,000 and £10,000. Well, it's now chance for Phil to get his chance to make a last appeal as to why the Gold Star is the dogs. You've heard what the panel have said, and they've been pretty complimentary in many ways, but also you've heard it described as a pig. Your chance now to tell it the way it is and why you think that this bike is the dogs.
Well, what I like about the Gold Star is the appearance of it, the power, the performance, the road handling and everything on the Gold Star. It's got to be driven out on the open road. No good in towns or traffic or anything like that.
Well, thanks, Phil. Back to our panel now. You've heard Phil's plea. The Triton's coming up. You've seen the bike up close. First of all, James, your thoughts?
Well, the Gold Star is what it is. It's a machine for using on sunny Sunday afternoons. It's 50 years old nearly now, but it's still a fast, exhilarating machine to ride.
Cosmo?
Again, very nice. If you want to look at it, and again, open roads only. People that buy these have to realise it is a race bike. It isn't a nice bike to ride in traffic.
I'd say Phil's point about the attractiveness is absolutely right, and the attractiveness is based on all the other BSAs, so this is the top of the tree.
All right, thanks, gents. Now, will they change their minds when they've heard from our next owner who believes that his bike is the best in this class?
Yeah, Phil's bike's all right, but my Triton is top dog.
Which bike gets christened the dogs? Find out when we come back. Welcome back. Well, as you've seen already, if you believe that your bike is the top dog, you'll do whatever it takes to convince the skeptic that yours is the best in its class. Now, Phil did a pretty good job with his BSA Gold Star, but Nicholas here in the studio from Brighton disagrees completely. He believes that his 1965 Triton really is the dogs.
My name is Nicholas Masters, and I am a proud owner of this lovely Triton here. It was first registered in 1966. It's a 1956 wide-line Norton frame with a 750 Bonneville T140 engine in it. I've had quite a few British bikes, but to me, the reason I love this bike is because it epitomises the rockers, the era, the 1960s. It's just a showman's bike to me. It's shiny, it's loud, very fast. It's one of the most exhilarating things that you could ever do. To me, it's like being in heaven. It's absolutely wonderful. It's fast, you feel part of the bike, and to me that gives me such a passion. I feel so good on it. People stop to stare when you're on this bike. It's just, it just really epitomises what a rocker is all about. If you want the ultimate pose, this is it.
And Nicholas is here with me now with his Triton. You saw what Phil did with the BSA, and you heard what the panel had to say. Do you think you can do better?
Yes, most definitely. It was very interesting what Phil had to say about his Gold Star, but I'm very passionate about this bike, and it epitomises what rockers are all about.
All right, thanks, Nicholas. Cosmo, first of all, the ultimate rockers bike.
Definitely the ultimate calf racer. Triton is what it's about. This particular model's got a wide line frame, complete with a short rolled holder forks. The featherbed frame is superb at road holding, and handles like it's absolutely on rails. Goes like stink. Just looks the part.
That's it, but it's very difficult to compare it to the Gold Star. The thing with the Gold Star is that it's how the factory produced it. With the Triton, it's very much dependent on the person who's built it. These weren't a factory-produced bike.
Steve, that's a good point that James has brought up, that they are very individual bikes, a combination of Triumph and Norton. Is that a problem to the purists?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, the only problem was, by the beginning of the 60s, Norton themselves, in their featherbed frame, were putting a 650 engine that was as quick as the Triumph one.
Well, gentlemen, let me hold you there. As you can see, the panel raring to go. We'll hear more from them in a moment. We'll also hear from Nicholas, who's desperate to tell us why he believes that this Triton really is the dogs. Well, we want to hear your comments on this Triton or any of the other bikes in the series. All you have to do is log on to our website at minimotors.co.uk. You can also tell us what bikes you think we should have on the show. Maybe you've got an iconic bike yourself. Let us know if you think we should see it. But on with the debate now, and first of all, James, the Triumph engine, definitely one of the best of its time, and certainly the featherbed frame we've already mentioned, superb handling. Surely it was in a class of its own.
Well, I mean, but the thing with it was that it wasn't a factory-built bike. It's something that people had to build themselves. That's important to remember. When you're comparing it to the Gold Star is how it came out of the factory, and that that means that the Gold Star, for all its problems and faults, was a factory-built thing. These are tailored to people's specific requirements.
Which surely makes it an individual bike,
yeah,
a unique bike.
I'm not knocking it for that,
No.
but the thing is that it's not, you know, it's not a produced item. It's how people made it
And if
themselves.
this is what rockers are all about self-punishment by the look of it.
And individualism.
And individualism, but you know, where does that shade into masochism? You're draped over the thing, you're being beaten up by those upside-down shocks at the back, you're scraping the cars on either side with those splayed exhaust silencers, which I've never seen anything like, and so forth. One man's meat, basically, which is why no Triton can ever have the universal appeal that a Gold Star did, as well as the fact that Gold Stars kick their ass on the street.
The thing is, like I say, universal appeal, that's the Gold Star. Triton is something that's going to appeal to the individual who's built it, which is brilliant for them.
It's a bike that's made out of parts, and it's a recognised mark now, Triton.
Yeah, it's definitely.
And you speak to any rocker or any 60s wild child that used to ride these, and the Triton is the thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
They are typical of the era, and can't be denied.
It
but
definitely...
Not to everyone's taste, and that includes me.
Of course, as I said before, I'm a Gold Star man myself, but a Triton is affordable. And,
That's
usable
quite
as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Guys, let me stop you there. We'll have more debate in a moment to decide whether this bike really is the dog's, but we sent our cameras out with Nicholas to take a look at the Triton in action. Well, by the looks of things, Nicholas having a ball out there on the Triton. But let's go back to our panellists. Steve, you're still not convinced? The handling doesn't look good to you?
Handling looks fine, absolutely. It's the riding position I have a quarrel with. Also, for instance, that gear shift lever, unsheathed with rubber, will massacre your feet after a very short mileage.
It's not a boy's bike though. It's it is a rider's bike at the end of the day, and I can see Nicholas here does actually use the machine. Usability is what it's about, not affordability, I'm afraid.
Steve, let me throw it back to the era when the BSA and this were out and about. We've already mentioned the BSA quite expensive, so would this get more popularity?
It would. Triumph spares were cheap and plentiful. Tuning aids were cheap and plentiful. It was another big part of the appeal. You could blow one of these up, and believe me, people did, and build it together without breaking the
That's
bank.
it. I mean, yeah, build it together. Some owners built them out of shoestring and chewing gum, and then you could get specialised people like the Kennedy brothers, Dave Degens, etc. Used to build them in shop as such.
Give us an idea of the expense as a restorer, Cosmo. What are we talking here?
If you wanted to restore a Triton and build one, you could spend as much as a standard production bike. You know, you could spend 5, 6, 7,000 on it, plus buying it a box of bits for 2,000. So you can spend as much or as little as you want. But affordability is actually purchase price of the bike. You can buy them for about £1,500. You only need to open your local classic bike magazine.
All right, talk is cheap. Let's talk about the facts, and here they are on the Triton. The Triton has a 2-cylinder overhead valve engine, putting out 649 cc's with a brake horsepower of 49. Top speed of 115 miles per hour, and it's cost approximately £5,000. So those are the facts, and Nicholas, now it's your chance to finally impress on the panel, your plea, if you like, as to why this bike is the dog's.
Well, it was very interesting listening to your comments there, panel, but to me, this is a unique bike. It's the ultimate bike in my eyes, and I'm very passionate about it, and there's nothing more I like better than putting my leg over that and racing down to Brighton Pier and having a cup of tea. That's what it's all about. To me, that's what it is.
Thank you, Nicholas. And I tell you what, it's a fair point. Let's just put that in perspective. We've been talking about performance against the BSA. Is it surely not about what it feels to the individual riding the bike, James?
Absolutely, and I mean, Nicholas is obviously extremely passionate and loves it, and you can't knock that at all. But I mean, you come back to comparing it, we're comparing it to the Gold Star, saying which one is the top of the two. And I'm saying, you know, I've been saying all along that the individual is who the bike is for, but the Gold Star was a mass-produced, well, not mass-produced, but it was produced by a factory. So these are very, very different depending on who's made it themselves.
Steve, top dog potential for this bike?
Well, Nick may be passionate, but I think his passion must anaesthetise his rear end. If you look at the thickness of that seat, the point I'm trying to make is it's a short haul bike, whereas the Goldie is arguably a better all-rounder.
Cosmo.
Personally, purely on affordability and rideability, I would go for a Triton. My heart would say the Gold Star, but you know, the Triton is the ultimate 60s calf racer.
All right, well, we've seen both the owners, both the bikes, and it's now time for the decision to be made. Which bike is the top dog?
I think for me, if I could have one in my garage, it would be the Gold Star.
This is a nice-looking bike, no question, but that is a noble bike.
The Triton's got a lot going for it. It's practical. It works more practical than the Goldie.
Affordability and usability, I'd pick the Triton every time.
At the end of the day, it's all about what you want and about dreams, and the one that you dream of having is your Gold Star.
Desirability, and with a fat wallet, I would go for the Gold Star.
Yes,
we don't all live in the world where we can all afford Gold Stars, and the Triton is maybe more attainable.
This is a nice bike. It's svelte, it's okay, but that really looks the business.
If our hearts could be left to decide, then we'd all have the Gold Star.
The Gold Star, yeah.
So, James Robertson, tell us which of these two bikes is the dog's?
Well, they've both got a lot of admirable qualities. You know, it's a pretty difficult decision, but unanimously we've decided that for us the Gold Star takes it. So what we'll do is we'll ask Nick if he'd be so kind as to present Phil with this trophy.
Don't believe that. Congratulations, well done.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Phil, the winner. The BSA always the winner?
Definitely, always the winner. Best bike out of the two.
And Nicholas, I don't suppose it'll change your view on going down to Brighton?
No, still the best bike going ever. Lovely bike. I will be down at Brighton.
All right, well, I'm sure the debate will continue long into the night. My thanks to all the panel and to our two owners this week, and to everybody at the Sammy Miller Museum. We'll be back next time with two more iconic bikes to decide which one is the top dog. Join us.